Imagine a time when scientific and mathematical breakthroughs were commonplace and fertile land was irrigated by the Nile River. Ancient Egypt was a 3,000-year-old successful and intellectual civilization. What do you imagine it would be like to be an Egyptian during this time period? Let's say there are no droughts, locusts, plagues, or famines during this time. The ancient Egyptians had rigid social structures. Your life would be very different depending on the class or trade you were born into. Slaves and servants, tenant farmers, specialists like as sailors and soldiers, educational professionals, and eventually the wealthy made up the hierarchical pyramid of social position and riches. What character would you choose? Slaves were at the bottom of the social ladder. They hailed from different countries and were not of the same race. Even if they had the ability to negotiate their contracts, they were still bonded workers who labored for food and shelter. The ruler who ruled over everyone was at the very top of the pyramid. Throughout the history of ancient Egypt, there were 300 monarchs. While we now refer to them as pharaohs, that was not their official title in ancient Egypt. Rulers did not have to be Egyptians or men, but they were viewed as divine intermediaries between the gods and the people. Depending on your gender, your life would be very different. Egypt, like many other ancient civilizations, had rigid gender roles. However, your legal rights remained the same. If they so desired, women may own property and live independently. Marriage, on the other hand, was considered a social and economic necessity, regardless of gender. So, if you lived in ancient Egypt, you'd most likely be married with a family. You would dwell in a mud brick house with a stone oven and food storage pits sunk into the ground. If you were born into a wealthy family, consider yourself fortunate. Your servants would attend to you as a nobleman or woman. The man of the house would ride down to his land on the Nile's banks after a meal of bread and fruit. You might take a little siesta after seeing the grounds and possibly speaking with the estate overseer about the year's harvest. You'd meet up with a friend to hunt wildfowl on your land once you'd rested. As a woman, you would spend the day supervising banquet plans at home. You would adorn yourself with gold and center-precious stones before the meal to further demonstrate your affluence. You're now prepared to receive your visitors as they arrive in chariots and litters, which were wheelless enclosures carried on attendants' shoulders. You eat geese, duck, fish, cow, and gazelle whether you're a nobleman or a lady. Grapes, figs, dates, and melons follow. After the celebration, you retire to your bed as your servants clean up. Farming is not nearly as glamorous. If you're a man, you'll spend the day caring to livestock or ducks in the fields. You would gather part of your harvests on tax day and present it to the temple as payment for the land. You spend your days grinding wheat, preparing bread, and raising children if you're a woman. Bread, beer, garlic, and, if you're lucky, a little meat make up the majority of your diet. Perhaps you're a pyramid builder rather than a member of the elite or a farmer. You wouldn't be a slave, but you would be forced to work long hours. You'd be one of 10,000 dedicated employees. Because one pyramid takes 30 years to build, you'd probably spend your entire life working on the same structure. Because of all that hard work, you'd be shorter than your fellow ancient Egyptians. At the very least, you get to eat meat on a regular basis and have a proper burial when you die. You would worship thousands of gods regardless of your social level. You would pass the time by playing board games like Mehen or Senet for amusement. Overall, the quality of your life will be influenced by your ruler and the historical period you live in. During this civilization, there were 3 periods of prosperity and 2 periods of instability. Droughts or locust infestations posed a persistent threat of famine.